My name is Santiago Nieto, and I'm here to talk about race, whether or not it exists in our society today. Before I keep going on any further, ask yourself one question. What does race mean to you? When you talk about it every day, what does it mean to be black? What does it mean to be Spanish? So, before I keep going any further, keep this question in mind and watch this clip of my pastor at a local church and to inform you on what his belief of what race really means.
Hello, what's your name?
My name is Doug Souter, and I am the pastor of Calvary Chapel in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
And so the question that was asked was, how did the different races begin? And so here's what the Bible teaches. In Genesis chapter 1, the Bible says that God made men and women in His image. So we all are marked with what Christian thinkers talk about is the Imago Dei. We have the image of God in us. So every man, woman, and child that's ever been born, no matter what race they are, has been marked with the image of God. Genesis 10 tells us how all the different nations formed, how the African nation formed, how the European nation formed, how the Eastern nations formed. So the entire kind of description of the civilization, how people migrated to different worlds, how they developed different languages in Genesis 10 and 11 is described actually in the Bible. And so God is the one who created people of all different colors, just like He created fish of different colors and animals of different colors. And we're supposed to respect the beauty and diversity of those things. So why does racism exist? The Bible describes it as sin. We all have depravity in us. We all, when you're given the right to do right and wrong, most of the time we will choose wrong. And so what we can do is we can get in groups where we think, oh, we're smarter, we're superior, we understand each other. And the more we're separated in different groups, the less we seek to understand other people. But when Jesus came to the earth, the Bible says He died for every man and every race, and to take every dividing wall, the wall between men and women, the wall between people of different languages, Greeks and Jews, black and white and Spanish, and all those different barriers we create, He came to destroy them. Because at the foot of the cross, Jesus would say, every man and woman is equal and of equal value, and I've actually died for all of them so that they could know me. And that's the message of the gospel, the message of the Bible. It's a message I believe. And it's the duty of every Christian and every person to recognize God's mark on us and take our responsibility to fight racism or classism or sexism wherever it rears its ugly head.
Now let's talk about what race really means to most people. Race looks at social, economical, and political forces resulting in socially constructed identities. And of these identities, people are put into racial categories. Let's put this idea into practice. I have a Korean friend, and he was adopted by an Italian family. He eats Italian food, he talks Italian, he knows of Italian history and culture. Even though he's Korean, even though he practices all these Italian customs, people are still going to treat him as if he's Asian just because of his physical features. This is how people put them into racial categories. Alright, so before I keep on going, let's think about where the origins of race come from. Well, one of the first people to come up with the theory of race was Johann Friedrich Blumenbach. He was a German physician, anthropologist, and physiologist, and he made the theory that there are 5 different races. In this theory of 5 different races, there is not one that was inferior or superior to the other. So let's think about where did this idea come from that African Americans, or let's say Latinos, are inferior to one another. Around the same time, the European scientific revolution was thriving, and so was the rise of the Atlantic slave trade, which gave them an incentive in order to put the African Americans into a different racial category, in order to make them feel inferior and to make it easier for them to, once they get to the Americas, to put them into, let's say, enslavement. Now, on page 99, chapter 5 of the book, it states, using race to justify slavery was an important component of this conservative trend. Unlike white people, the argument was that black people were unsuited for freedom or citizenship. During the same time, this challenged the Enlightenment and proposed that God had created a great chain of beings from lesser creatures to higher creatures. So now at this time is where they start deforming the words from the Bible, where they start saying, you know what, even though we're all made equal, I'm pretty sure God didn't have the intentions to make one inferior, to make them all equal. They're putting their own words into the Bible and saying, you know what, the African Americans are inferior, they don't really deserve as many rights as the whites have. Alright, so how do these racial categories affect African Americans when they came to the new country? In many different ways, as you've learned throughout the course. Throughout history, we can see certain instances where discrimination against African Americans was very well and alive. You can see that in the race films in chapter 5, or page 419. You can see it through social Darwinism, where whites even adapted this mentality that they were superiority, and that blacks were unfit to be able to thrive in the community. And also you can see it in the Tuskegee experiment where they didn't even care for the health care or well-beings of the African Americans. You can see it in the 1970s and the 1960s after the persecutions, and even the day of today in our prison population. You can see that from 1970 to present day today, there's over 200, like it started off 300,000 prisoners, now there's over 2 million, and throughout the same time, crime has fluctuated, but the prison population still keeps going up, and the majority of the prison population are African Americans on petty theft charges. They're always persecuted just for their skin color. If you walk down the street, you constantly see, you can see in the videos of the internet, there's evidence today that will lead you to the same conclusion that racism does exist, but race doesn't, because race is only something that we give it power. We give it power because of our history and because we choose to. It's the way we were brought up. That through knowledge and through history is how we're able to overcome these factors in today's society. So that is why I believe race, it doesn't exist. It's something that we made up.